Hopefully at this point in time you're becoming very comfortable with finding sine and cosine on the unit circle and being able to give exact values of those problems. What we're going to be looking at in this video is when we have secant and when we have cosecant, when we have tangent and when we have cotangent, to make sure you're able to use the unit circle to get those exact values as well. So we're going to be starting with secant, and the proper abbreviation of secant would just be SEC. And when we see secant, we know that that is equivalent to 1 over the cosine of x. We'll put secant of x there. Please keep in mind that this does not mean cosine negative 1x, so you would not use that button at all on your calculator. It's just 1 divided by the cosine. It's pretty much the reciprocal of the cosine. So if I were doing a problem, and I'm just going to write this right on there, it's the reciprocal of the cosine of, yes, okay. So now if we're trying to find some different values, I'm just going to do a few and see how we do on it. So let's see if I did the secant of pi over 3. What I'm going to do, this is going to be the reciprocal of the cosine of pi over 3. So if I'm using cosine of pi over 3, and I have my handout right now, maybe you do, or doing it a different way. So if I look at the cosine of pi over 3, I know that that is equal to 1/2. And there's a couple ways that I could do this. I could actually do 1 divided by 1/2, which would be the same thing as 1 multiplied by 2, which is 2. Okay, that's kind of the long way of doing it. Or the other way that I think is a little bit easier is if you just think of the secant as being the reciprocal of cosine. The cosine was 1/2, so the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. So the secant of pi over 3 is 2. Okay, the next one, let's say if we had secant of 2, I want to do 2, let's do 5/6 pi. Okay, the first thing that I know, it's going to be 1 over the cosine of 5/6 pi, and this time I'm just going to think of it as being it's the reciprocal of the cosine of 5/6 pi. So that's the first thing that I need to do is figure out cosine of 5/6 pi, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a unit circle up here just so I can reference it in just a minute. So first of all, if I find the cosine of 5/6 pi, square root of 3 over 2. And 5/6 pi would be about right here, and the cosine, since that's an x value, is going to be negative. So the reciprocal of negative square root of 3 over 2 would be negative 2 over the square root of 3. You may leave that as an answer. Some people like to rationalize the denominator, and if I did that, we could multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3, and that ends up giving me negative 2 square root of 3 over 3. So either one of those would be an alright answer. Okay, let's try the secant of, let's maybe do 7/4 pi. So if I did the secant of 7/4 pi, it's the reciprocal of the cosine of 7/4 pi. So I know the cosine of pi over 4 is square root of 2 over 2. And if I'm at 7/4 pi, it's about right here. It's in the third quadrant. It's in the fourth quadrant. I know the cosine, since that's x, is positive over there, so it's going to be the square root of 2 over 2. So the reciprocal of the square root of 2 over 2 would be 2 over the square root of 2. And then if I wanted to rationalize it, especially if we're doing multiple choice, that might be a good option. I'm going to multiply by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. And when I do that, I get 2 square root 2 over 2. The 2's cancel. So my answer is just going to be the square root of 2. Okay, I'm going to do just a couple more for this one. Let's say I have the secant of pi over 2. So this is really just 1 over the cosine of pi over 2. So the cosine of pi over 2 is, if I've got my handout, it's what's above, it's going to be 0. So I end up getting 1 over 0, and I can't do 1 divided by 0, so this would actually be an undefined answer. Okay, and then I'm going to do one more. If I had the secant of pi, I'm going to have 1 over the cosine of pi. And so if I knew the cosine of pi is actually negative 1, so it's going to be 1 over negative 1, which is negative 1. Okay, now let's do that same thing, but this time we're going to do it with the cosecant. The abbreviation for cosecant is CSC of x. And then it is equivalent to 1 over the sine of x, or again, we could say it's equivalent to the reciprocal of the sine of x. And that's usually an easier way to look at it when we just are doing 1 over something. Okay, so let's do a few examples. I'm going to go ahead and draw my unit circle over here. So if I have the cosecant of, let's do this time, maybe we'll do 5/3 pi. It's going to be equivalent to 1 over the sine of 5/3 pi, or the reciprocal of the sine of 5/3 pi. So I'll start with sine of pi over 3. The sine of pi over 3 is going to be the square root of 3 over 2. And then the reciprocal of the square root of 3 over 2 would be 2 over the square root of 3. And once again, I'm going to rationalize. So I'll end up getting 2 square root 3 over 3. And that would be my answer. Alrighty, the next one, let's try, we'll just do a couple more on this one. If I have the cosecant of, we'll do 3/2 pi for this one. So this is going to be equivalent to 1 over the sine of 3/2 pi. Okay, 3/2 pi is down here, and the y value down there would be -1. So I'm going to have 1 divided by -1, and 1 divided by -1 is -1. Okay, and I'm going to do one more for this example. Let's say I have the cosecant of, I think I'm going to be a little tricky on this one. Let's say I say 9/2 pi. This kind of messed people up on the last quiz that we took. It's going to be the same thing as 1 over sine of 9/2 pi. And actually, I'm going to make this 9/4, I think, just to switch it up a little bit. So we'll make it 9/4 pi. Okay, if you think of 9/4 pi, 4 goes into 9 2 times, so this would be like 2 1/4 pi. So you're going to go 2 pi, which is all the way around the unit circle, and then you're going to go 1/4 pi more. So I do end up in the first quadrant for this one, so I really am just concerned about sine of pi over 4, and we know that the sine of pi over 4 is the square root of 2 over 2, and it's in the first quadrant, so it's positive. The reciprocal of that would be 2 over the square root of 2. And once again, I'm going to rationalize my denominator. So I'll get 2 square root of 2 over 2, and that reduces to give me the square root of 2. So that's secant and cosecant. Now we're going to deal with tangent. The biggest thing that we want to know with tangent, the abbreviation is TAN, and it is equivalent to the sine of an angle over the cosine of an angle. So we'll find the sine, and we'll divide it by the cosine. So let's just do a few examples here. Let's say I have the tangent of pi over 3. What I'm going to do, it's going to be equivalent to the sine of pi over 3 divided by the cosine of pi over 3. So the sine of pi over 3 is going to be square root of 3 over 2. And then the cosine of pi over 3 is 1/2. And then since I have two fractions being divided, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So the square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. 2's cancel. I end up getting the square root of 3. All right, let's try the tangent of 7/6 pi. How about, let's get a unit circle drawn here. Okay, 7/6 pi is going to be the sine of 7/6 pi divided by the cosine of 7/6 pi. And let's see, the sine of 7/6 pi is this, sine of 7/6 pi is 1/2. And then the cosine is the square root of 3 over 2. And now let's look at my signs here. If I'm down, 7/6 pi is down here, so both of them will be negative. So I know a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so I don't have to worry about that. But now I'm going to take 1/2, and I will multiply by the reciprocal of that, which will be 2 over the square root of 3. The 2's cancel, so I end up getting 1 over the square root of 3. And I do think I will rationalize that, so I will multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. That will give me the square root of 3 over 3. So that will be my answer for that one. Okay, let's do two more. Let's say I have the tangent of pi over 2. So if I go to, again, that's going to be the sine of pi over 2 divided by the cosine of pi over 2. And when I do that, pi over 2 is up here. So the sine, the y value up there is 1. And the cosine is the x value, which would be 0. 1 divided by 0 is undefined. So the tangent of pi over 2 is undefined. And then let's just try one more. Let's say I did the tangent of 0, maybe. So this will be the sine of 0 over the cosine of 0. The sine of 0 is right here. That's the y value, would be 0. and the cosine of 0 is 1. 0 divided by 1 is 0. So that's pretty much how you'll do tangent. We've got one more, which will be cotangent, and we'll just abbreviate it COT, theta. And then if I'm looking at this, since this is actually equal to 1 over the tangent of theta, the easiest way of looking at this, though, if I'm not graphing it as 1 over tangent theta, it's the reciprocal of tangent. So the easiest way of looking at this, if the tangent is sine over the cosine, the cotangent is cosine over sine. So again, especially if you don't have a calculator, that's the easiest way of looking at it. So that's how I'm going to do these next two problems. So if I need to find the cotangent of, let's do 7/4 pi. Let's get out my unit circle again here. All right, first of all, this is going to equal cosine of 7/4 pi over the sine of 7/4 pi. And then from there, anything with pi over 4 is going to be the square root of 2 over 2 for each of them. And then if I'm looking at 7/4 pi, 7/4 pi is almost to 8/4 pi, which would be 2, so it's over here somewhere. Actually, it would be right in the middle. The cosine is the x value over there, so this will be positive, and the y value over there will be negative. So I'm going to, I guess I could multiply by the reciprocal, but I know that the square root of 2 divided by the square root of 2 over 2 is 1, and then a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So that one will be -1. Okay, and I'll just do one more example with this one. Let's say I have the cotangent of, let's do maybe 2/3 pi. How about? So if I have 2/3 pi, this is going to be cosine 2/3 pi over sine of 2/3 pi. And so if I'm looking at 2/3 pi, let's get up my hand here real quick. Cosine is going to be 1/2, and then the sine will be square root of 3 over 2. 2/3 is over here, getting close to 1 pi. The cosine over there is negative, the sine is positive, so I'll actually have a -1/2 times 2 over square root of 3, because I do have to multiply by the reciprocal. The 2's cancel, I get -1 over the square root of 3. Let's go ahead and rationalize the denominator. So I'll end up getting negative square root 3, negative square root 3 over 3, and that would be my answer. So hopefully now you're a little bit more familiar with cosecant and secant and tangent and cotangent.